Hello, little ones. My name is Lorraine and I am a successful entrepreneur. When I found out my daughter was fantasizing about me being a rampaging giantess, I was confused. But I wanted to fulfill her wish, and so I became a real 620-foot woman. And what should I say? Now I freaking love to be a giantess. I love the power and to tower over everyone. I've crushed so many people under my bare feet, you can't even imagine. But I'm talking too much. Just sit back and enjoy the story.
Paying the Price, a Giantess Lorraine story. This is the continuation of A Deserved Vacation. Lorraine, upon wreaking havoc on the vast and prosperous metropolis, leaving very few buildings and people intact, but still trapped and scared out of their minds, was startled by the mysterious thing crashing into the ocean and sending huge waves towards her. She shook her head and began approaching the source of the impact with curiosity and caution. But even the most reserved approach wouldn't save her as she was violently and swiftly pulled beneath the water's surface. She managed to gather some air into her lungs to withstand it, but what in the name of everything was that? In the panic, she caught a glimpse of something purple, a peculiar creature that looked like a cryptid, a mix between lizard and a fish, like something out of a horror movie or a super secret military base hidden out of everyone's eyes. That very creature, that monster, was viciously attacking her. Lorraine couldn't tell if it works on instinct or it's sentient, understanding creature. All she knew was that if she doesn't do anything, she's gonna drown. She tried to fight the titanic amphibian creature off with kicks and punches, but water was slowing down her movements and she stood no chance against the purple monstrum. Before she could land anything on the creature's surface, it managed to do 2 circles around Lorraine and deliver an attack of its own. Things went from bad to worse. On land maybe she would have won against this monster, but in its domain? Within the water depths? No way. Panic started to intensify. She started thinking what she can do, and there was one thing, one glimmer of hope that could save her. She tried growing even more to become larger than the massive monster. Then she could just use size advantage to deal with the threat. However, with panicked, almost apocalyptic state of mind, she couldn't focus at all, so she grew a minuscule amount. But it seemed to work. That little growth spurt seemed to knock the creature off and lose her grip on Lorraine. Seeing her chance, she kicked the confused monster back and emerged from the water depths, lapping the oxygen like animal downs a bowl of water on a hot day. Lorraine looked around and noticed a small ship that was pretty close. Not thinking much, she picked it up, a weapon, a shield, whatever. She needed any advantage she could get against the amphibian monster. She didn't even focus on the people on the ship that started falling into the water or suffocating in the giantess' grasp. That is, if they weren't already smushed to nothing. In the meantime, in Yejin's place, Tina was watching TV and her excitement was replaced with fear and worry. One of the survivors managed to keep the live stream going from a relatively safe spot. That monster seemed as large as her mother and definitely more powerful. Where did it come from? What the hell it was? Her mother always looked like a massive, unconquerable woman after her growth, fearing nothing and being powerful. But now? It was the first time in a long, long time Tina was afraid her mother would get hurt or even worse. Will she be okay? She muttered out. Yejin was shocked too, even though she did not understand Tina's fascination with giantesses or her mother indulging in her fantasies. Or rather, she did understand being big like Tina's mother, but could never understand Tina's enjoyment with being small while she could be big and rampaging like her mother. Suffice it to say, instead of being a tiny victim of Lorraine, Yejin would rather join her in some random rampage. The scene on the screen was like ripped out from a B-class movie, and yet, it was real. Noticing her friend's worried face, she had to shake her head and approach her, gently wrapping her arm around her friend. Hey, it's your mum we're talking about. Course, she's gonna be fine. Tina wanted to believe these words, but it was hard. Seeing what is going on, back at the ocean, the massive monster emerged from the water depths and Lorraine could finally get a good look at her. It looked human, to some extent, with a fiercely angry face, limbs almost as if human was mixed with lizard. Then a fish, and then grew to a monstrous size. Without a word, the creature swiped with her tail at Lorraine. She used the ship to block it and throw the vessel into the creature's face, shattering it. Using the confusion, Lorraine used her sharp nails to drive across the monster's face. She managed to wound her, but to her horror, the wounds disappeared just as quickly as they appeared. Did this creature had some hyper-regenerative abilities? If so, how can she emerge victorious? There's only one way, as she thought. The creature activated something like a gun? A futuristic gun, blaster if you will, that was integrated in her bracelet. Yes, she too had a high-tech bracelet. She was an alien. Lorraine picked up another ship, and before she could even use it, the vessel was obliterated by the blaster. The giantesses kept fighting, or rather, Lorraine kept avoiding and dodging the shots, trying to land her own blows on the creature and doing her absolute best to focus and keep growing. It was the only way to have any real chance of defeating or at least scaring off the amphibian. During their fight, multiple other boats and ships were destroyed and countless other people met their demise in the water depths, but the two were so engaged in their fight for life and death that none paid attention to this. The annoyed creature finally screamed out in rage, "Stop growing, or I'll have no other choice than to just kill you." This shocked Lorraine. This monster could speak a human language and with full coherency and understanding. It wasn't a machine, it wasn't anything she knew. The questions piled up, but that was her chance. In shock, she replied, "What? You can talk? Who, what even are you? And no other choice, bitch, you almost drowned and shot me already." Lyxe angrily stood up in front of Lorraine, who was mildly bigger now. "Oh? And you already killed over 2 million innocent people in this city. You think that I, Lyxe, will let you just roam free? You're just a giant piece of trash that needs to be cleansed." Lyxe was furious, having in memory the fights against various giant robots and other utmost cruel giantesses from the past. So this creature's name was Lyxe. Another piece of knowledge to the massive puzzle that was this creature. Lorraine scoffed, "So? Yeah, I killed them for fun, and what about it? Who cares? It's not like I care, you." Before Lorraine could finish, Lyxe screamed out and attacked with extreme fury. Biting into Lorraine's arm with her sharp teeth, she kept increasing the pressure of the bite until the arm was severely injured. After that, she threw the careless giantess back into the water. As soon as she was going to dive back in and deal with her, Lyxe got distracted by a military fleet shooting at her. She turned to them with a rage-filled face and roared, "Hey! I'm on your side, you idiots, stop this." However, they did not care, their side or not, this was a massive threat. Seeing as she won't convince them to stop shooting, she let them be. It's not like their assault is gonna leave any lasting, or any mark for that matter. She turned around and backed off instinctively upon seeing Lorraine towering over her. All she needed was a second to fully focus, and she grew to twice the size of Lyxe. Irritated, and holding herself by the arm, she pushed the amphibian back into the water with her foot and angrily stated, "You sick little dash. If you would just let me finish my sentence." As I was about to say, it's not like these people stay dead. I was just out to have some fun and I was about to restore them before heading out. Look, you stubborn dumb fish. Watch this. She pulled her arm above the water's surface. Lorraine took a look at her golden bracelet and tried using it once, twice, thrice. Nothing. It was not working, it was damaged, but the reason was not precise. The fight? The military? The water itself? Whatever it was, it caused her safeguard to malfunction. She was in absolute shock and devastation. She couldn't restore all these people, hell, she couldn't even restore a part of them. The number echoed in her mind, 2 million, crushing people was a lot of fun, but she never ever intended to leave these people dead. Have some fun, crush some people, restore them and be on the merry way, that's how it's always been. Lorraine let go of Lyxe because of the shock. She realized that she is indeed guilty of mass genocide. She began walking away with a pale face and heavy breathing. I need a moment for myself. She forgot and ignored the amphibian. Lyxe, once free, used her bracelet to grow to a massive size, in comparison to Lorraine's puny 400 meters. The amphibian stood at over 20,000 meters, or better said 20 kilometers tall. She was visible from many places in the world and confusion grew. A hallucination? A massive group project. What could it be? Lyxe, still filled with rage and hatred, grabbed the bug-sized Lorraine and threw her through the portal before shrinking back down and following her. The simple act of growth caused huge waves to be sent all around her, ships thrown all around and capsized. The crew was alive, but their vessels were unusable. Meanwhile Tina was devastated and the tears started falling down her face. Mom is gone. Is it because of me? Would she? Did I make this happen? If I was more careful. If she didn't find Dash, the more she spoke, the more she cried. Yejin tried comforting her. Hey. Look at me, it's not your fault. Your mother loves you and she did that because she loves you. Right? Tina shyly nodded. Okay, and if that creature wanted your mother dead, she probably would deal with it right here and right now, right? Tina nodded again. Precisely, so. Let's wait for a while. Come, I'll give you some ice cream. On the other side of the portal, Gulsan was confused why this new giantess was forcefully thrown into the portal and crash-landed. Plus her size was pretty imposing as she had to look up at the woman, but she looked hollow, mortified. Her eyes empty, looking into the distance, her body like husk, not wanting to move a single inch. What happened? Lyxe arrived shortly after and before everything else, she called out, Gulsan. Shrink her down or I don't know what I'll do. Gulsan, intimidated by Lyxe, after all, it was the first time she looked so absolutely furious, did that and shrunk the colossal giantess to some 10 meters. She was like a doll when compared to them. Lyxe bent down with her furious face very close to Lorraine. Let's have a talk now, you little, selfish piece of meat. I will show you the definition of fear. Gulsan was surprised because Lyxe was angry beyond belief, however. She knew nothing. She started holding Lyxe back just in case she wanted to do something irrational. Whoa. What's wrong? Why are you so mad? What has she done? Gulsan asked. Before Lyxe opened her mouth, the doll-sized Lorraine answered panting and with very hollow-sounding words. I killed 2 million people. I can't restore them. I didn't, she sounded really sorrow. Gulsan crouched down, looking at Lorraine with sort of compassion. You can't restore them? So usually you do. Have you tried harder? Maybe you need to focus harder. Lorraine felt so small and fragile between them, was it? How all these tiny people felt in the cities she crushed. No, it must have been even worse. But focus harder? What did that seemingly kind giantess mean? Aya was around, flying in her jetpack and chilling out when the mysterious woman flew through the portal and now her friends seemingly were interrogating her. She landed in front of Lorraine, between all three of them and looked up at the tall woman. You don't understand because you haven't used mental power to bring these people back, right? It was technology, I presume? Lorraine was surprised to see an actual tiny human here, but she seemed friendly and knowledgeable, so Lorraine shyly nodded. The absurdity of her situation was beyond her. She was between two colossal women, talking to even smaller woman, who seemed to want and help her while one of the giantesses seemed like she's going to snap and hurt her any second now. Aya inquired further, may I see the bracelet? I can't promise anything, but I can try repairing it. If I can do it quickly enough, maybe you can still help these people? Lorraine nodded with hope and quickly took off the bracelet and handed it over. Aya inspected, water pressure and stress on the mechanism. I'll see what I can do, be right back. She took the bracelet and flew away to her little workshop. Lyxe was still furious. Don't think we want to help you, you dash. We just want to help all these innocent people you mercilessly killed. Gulsan grabbed her by the arm and shook her head. Lyxe, did you already forgot? I was killing countless others too. Besides, look at her, don't you see? Once she realized she can't help them, she gave up and was mortified, am I right? Lorraine sadly nodded. Lyxe scoffed. But you are different. You just wanted revenge for all these years of mistreatment, of abuse. Not some careless damned. Gulsan stopped her halfway. Yes, that is true, but come on, you know I enjoy crushing some people from time to time, besides. Cut her some slack, will you? You also like it when people are scared of you and you playfully step on them. Lorraine looked up and shivered. Yeah. She scared me beyond belief. I thought some giant alien monster was about to kill me. Lyxe smiled smugly. I mean, that is actually what was happening. Ugh, I guess you're right, Gulsan, but still, before she could finish, Aya came back. I think it works. Here you go, I did my best. She handed the bracelet back to Lorraine. The doll-sized woman was confused. She couldn't test it here. Then, Gulsan casually stomped on Aya, crushing her underfoot. Lorraine opened her eyes widely in shock. Did you just kill your friend? Gulsan giggled. We gotta test the bracelet somehow, right? Besides, she winked, she likes it. And if the bracelet doesn't work, we can bring her back. So, try doing it. She held her soul a little over Lorraine, who managed to bring Aya back to life successfully with the bracelet. Aya smiled warmly. So, I take it that it works? Seeing Lorraine smile and happy nodding, she took that as a confirmation. But, time was of the essence. Okay, let's leave the celebrating. I need to go back and help them before it's too late. Time is running away. Lorraine said and looked up at Lyxe. Aya claimed, we will let you go. She looked sternly at Lyxe, but only if you share this technology with us. I want that bracelet. In exchange, how about we give you one of ours? That way we'll have a good peace and you won't have to really worry anymore. Lyxe wondered why the hell Aya would say something like this, but it occurred to her just how useful and valuable technology such as this would be on some missions. Now a bit calmer, she nodded affirmatively. Lorraine understood. If you're willing to wait a few weeks before we finish the next prototype, then I'll be happy to. She looked at Lyxe, who was reluctant to hand one of their bracelets to Lorraine. Gulsan raised her eyebrow. Lyxe, we don't have the time for your tantrum. Defeated, she handed over the shield emitter bracelet and explained, sigh. With this module turned on, you can step on people non-lethally. That's the simplest explanation. Lorraine nodded. Oh, I see, thanks. Following this, Gulsan took the restorative bracelet, Lorraine and Aya, and they went back to Earth with Lyxe's open portal. Lyxe stayed behind. She still needed to calm down and process what just happened. After arriving, Gulsan was happy. She never got to visit a Chinese city, so she was really glad. Lorraine took a moment to fully focus and grow to Gulsan's size. Here you go. She handed over the restorative bracelet. Okay, let's give it a shot, Lorraine said a bit unsurely. But, to her relief and surprise, people started coming back to life all across the city. The entire metropolis came back to the realm of the living in a span of seconds. Gulsan was impressed. This was infinitely easier and faster than using mental powers, Aya cheerfully claimed, flying between the giantesses. I also reinforced the bracelet so it should be able to withstand water and impacts much better. Just please don't stress test it. Lorraine nodded. I see, thank you. Gulsan crossed her arms with a smile. Don't feel too bad about all this. I understand, crushing is a lot of fun and even though Lyxe doesn't want to admit it, she knows that too and will calm down in a while. Lorraine nodded and Gulsan continued, speaking of which, do you mind if I visit the city with you? It's been a while since I've stepped all around. Lorraine giggled, now visibly calmer and happier. By all means, it's actually nice to have a big friend. The two giantesses ventured into the half-destroyed metropolis, much to the terror of the citizens. They remembered what happened just a few hours earlier. And now there were two massive women coming from the sea towards the city. The two quickly bonded with one another in a mutual rampage and fun. After all, the city wasn't in a complete ruin, so there was still some space for short destructive fun as they walked around, flattening the buildings, crushing the crowds. As they did, Lorraine started opening up. You know, I became this big for my lovely daughter. I think she'd love to meet you. She giggled, but with that bracelet, I think she'd become good friends with Aya too. Both of them, the big and small, were really enthusiastic about the idea. Oh, I'd love to meet her too. If you became like this for her sake, you must have raised a lovely child. Lorraine was flustered, but couldn't deny it. While all of this was happening, the restorative wave brought the TV crew back to life and they started filming the two giantesses some time ago. In Yejin's place, Tina was sorrowfully eating ice cream in the kitchen while her friend was scrolling through the feeds and channels. At one point, she noticed an ongoing transmission of Tina's mother and another woman rampaging through the city together. Opening her eyes, she called out, Tina. Come here right this instant. The scream sent shivers down Tina's spine, who came running to the living room and was absolutely relieved to see her mother all well and possibly with a new gigantic friend. Listening to their conversation, She melted down inside and held her hands against her heart with a smile. I'd love to meet them too. Yejin sighed cheerfully. Seriously. You can change moods with a click of a finger. She giggled and sat down beside her now happy friend, and they kept watching as Tina's mother rampages with her new friend. As the two rampaged together, with Aya flying in between, observing the crowds and giggling at the newfound friendship, Gulsan spoke. Just don't forget to restore them later, okay? Lorraine shook her head. Don't worry, I won't. And even if I do, I'm sure one of you will remind me to do this. The two giggled in agreement. Their cheerful discussions stood in polar opposite to the horror at the ground level. People could barely, if ever, avoid one giantess stepping all around the city. Now that there were two, it was only a matter of a coin flip whether they'll land beneath the one that was here before or the new one. Lorraine unknowingly flattened the TV crew yet again as she approached the rooftop with people she chewed on earlier. They were terrified to see her again and started backing off, only to realize there's really no way down from this rooftop. Lorraine picked them up into her hand and smiled. So, remember the promise. What was it like to be treated like a piece of food? Terrified, one by one they started speaking up, explaining how horrifying it was, how powerless they felt, the moisture and smell, the pain and force of the teeth. The longer they explained, the more intrigued Gulsan was. By the time they were finished, she giggled. Hey. Mind if I get that experience too? It's a bit unfair if only my friend here gets the best treatment, you know. The people's hearts sank. They could clearly remember how it felt to be thrown all around the giantess' mouth, and they were more than unwilling to do so, but they didn't have much choice here as the giantess that held them giggled. Just remember not to swallow. Now say, ah. Gulsan bent her head back and did as Lorraine asked. The familiar giantess tilted her hand, causing people to lose and grip they may have gotten and start tumbling into her mouth. Gulsan had a lot of fun throwing these terrified people across her mouth, but was careful to not swallow them. After a short while and spitting the remains back on the ground, she giggled. You know? It didn't feel bad, Lorraine shrugged, right? As the two walked even deeper into the city. Lorraine noticed the entrapped crowd. It seems that even despite what happened, they were still unwilling to cooperate with one another. She smirked and turned to Gulsan, whispering an idea into her ear. Her new friend was pretty excited and nodded. Oh, I like it, just gimme a moment to move around. Lorraine nodded and observed as Gulsan makes her way around the crowd and stands opposite to Lorraine. Two giantesses from two sides. You know what? Let's make it spicier. Lorraine started picking some people up from the ground, some loose crowds, and dropping them into the entrapped space, Gulsan doing the same. It became pretty tight, but that was what Lorraine had in mind. The two moved away, the cars blocking the street from their respective side. People below were ecstatic that the giantesses helped them get out. A foolish hope, as each blockade was quickly replaced by a massive, sweating soul. Cars on front and back, incoming feet from the sides. Lorraine giggled. To a new friendship, Gulsan confirmed cheerfully, to a new friendship. And the two began bringing their feet closer to one another. Aya was more than happy to see this and fly deep into the crowds while cheerfully screaming, to a new friendship, wait for me. She landed between the panicked crowds. She was probably the only person amid thousands to be so happy and impatient about what's going to happen. For the people around, the scent of sweat and steaming heat began to close in on them as the massive sauls kept coming closer and closer, packing themselves tighter and tighter together. The light around was shut down by the pair of dark sauls, and the last shining hope, which was the cloudless sky above, disappeared as the giantesses pressed their feet together. Some of the people popped instantly, but others got stuck to one soul or the other. And maybe they would survive somehow, if not for the two massive women rubbing their feet against one another back and forth, smearing their puny bodies across the sweaty surface. For Aya, however, it was heaven. Steamy, dark, suffocating, pressured heaven. It didn't take long for her to become pressed between the massive sauls and pop like a grape along hundreds, thousands of others. The two giantesses, and the overexcited Tiny, have sealed their friendship with a crimson carnage at the sauls. Listening to the cracking bones, popping people and feeling of wetness amid the sweat made them both smile and nod in understanding to one another. Last survivor of the soul sandwich finally given in to the heat and pressure, and everything went dark for all of the involved, all while the new friendship was celebrated with blood, sweat and tears. The end. This was the story Paying the Price, written by Elusive Sparrow. We hope you enjoyed the story. If so, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more stories. And if you want to support our work, Please check out our Patreon page. Thank you.